All right. Well, yeah, we're good to go.
Cool. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Just Not Checkers. My name is Keith, and I am here with my co-host, as usual, Jordan Tampion. And today is a very special guest, no other than Brennon Poynor.
Hello. How's it going?
It's fun to have you on this side of the window, actually.
Not in the producer booth today.
Yeah, so for those of you guys that don't know and don't ever see Brennon is a producer of our show. He owns a company called Spokane, Spokast. Mm-hmm. And this is what you do for a living. You help people make podcast shows, yes?
Yeah, that's exactly what I set out to do about 4 or 5 years ago. Help people make podcasts, and yeah.
Explain the landscape to me of podcasts 5 years ago, though, because I feel like they've evolved so quickly, so fast, right? Like they're everyone has one now, right?
That's
exactly.
I mean, I'm gonna. We were talking about books. Like someday I'll write a book. Is like everyone needs their own podcast, something like that. Just because I do think that there is such a space for it. It's like the new social media, people having podcasts, like a way to create content. But the landscape 5 years ago was COVID. And literally everyone.
Okay, so you launched around COVID.
So I went and worked for a little studio that was starting up called Speak. And the person who was running it kind of ran into the ground, stole a bunch of money locally, and and we built the studio. We had probably about 45 podcasts at one time, but the model was like free podcasts, and that's not really sustainable. And so I was kind of left to pick up the pieces, and I had about 8 clients that still wanted to podcast and were willing to pay me. And I was like, there's something here. And so, but back then, it was really like 5 years ago, people were just wanting to start podcasts because of COVID, because there was so much downtime. People were buying, like you're
at home listening.
Exactly. You're listening to podcasts, and you're like, well,
I can do that.
I have all this time, and just get on Amazon and order a microphone, but that was also a benefit to me because people were buying the equipment, but they just couldn't do all the pieces.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I mean, I can help you do your podcast, and so I saw a niche and really wanted to help the community, like, because there's not a lot of opportunity for people to record a podcast with a low barrier to entry. And I try to make it equitable in how I, with my clients, like if someone's if they just want to do like a 30-minute podcast, like how much does that cost? Like, and so I was trying to make a community model of getting people in here to start a podcast and just see what it was like, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we found you guys, I say we, when I first heard about Spokast was through Jordan, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, because Jordan's like, I know a guy who does podcasts, and we'll just talk to him, because previously I had been that guy, right? Like I'd been down that road of like, I do a fair amount of media stuff for my business, so I had like webcams or cameras or microphones, and even you buy equipment, and it's just, but dude, it's a lot of things, man. You're trying to match the audio with the visual, and you got mixers, and it's for me it was like just became one more bar to entry, really, or one more thing to do that was holding me back from doing the thing I wanted to do, which was like actually just doing the damn podcast. Right. And now I got to worry about like, what's the angle, what's the setting, how do I mix it, how much editing time do I need? And so I love that you did that, but I think it's very candidly, it makes it very easy to just get going on the topic you want to get going on and focus on your podcast and not everything that goes into making a podcast.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Our podcast would not have lasted this long if it wasn't under this set, because I'm like, all we really have to do, right, is get guests.
Yeah.
And then show up, and we show up, and it's grab our drink and go. And I think it really does make it easy. They're just it's so cumbersome. I could see why somebody gives up doing a podcast if you have to put it all together. So.
I mean, I have multiple podcasts that I do by myself, and I find myself kind of slacking on them because I have client work, and and it's hard. It's hard to like do a podcast when it's not really providing. It's more as a hobby, essentially. But that's where I was like, I saw like the opportunity to help people be more consistent, and because that, like you said, like I work with a lot of people who would have probably done 5-10 podcasts, and then they would have just stopped, or they would have done a bunch and then not released them. And that was what was frustrating for me at first when I started podcasting. Was I started just doing remote podcasts with a buddy. I did a fantasy football podcast back in 2015, right around when my twins were born, and we just did it on our phones. We were like, we used like a lawyer app that recorded calls, and that's how I started. That's how I started it, and it sounded like two people talking on a phone. It sounded awful, and I was like, well, I need to kind of learn the ropes of how to create a podcast with equipment. And in 2019, after like 4 years of doing, different types of podcasts, I found one of my friends was like, I want to start a podcast about Spokane and about the people in Spokane, and we should call it Spokast. And I was like, that's an amazing idea. But we were like sitting there, we're like, how do we get guests? And one of our friends, she was very well connected in the Spokane community, specifically in like the arts community. And we're like, we should have her come on and be our third host, and we can get this revolving door of guests. And our first guests were Luke Baumgarten and Ginger Ewing of Terrain and Range. And he hadn't even started Range yet. But, and I was like, we started, and we got like 250 listeners in the first day. And this is 5 years ago. Getting a lot of listeners was easy because not everyone had a podcast. Yeah. And so I started buying the equipment, and then I eventually, when I was working at that other space, I was collecting more and more equipment, and then I just had it all, and I was like, I should turn this into a business. And I was never really looking to become a entrepreneur or a business owner. I saw a need, and I come from a marketing background. I graduated from the Falls with a graphic design degree, web design, and got into in-house marketing, and I was like, I have a marketing mind, and that kind of transitioned to where I took Spokast.
Well, it's interesting because you start to break it down, and there's the actual shooting of the podcast, and then Jordan alluded earlier to like, we just got to get guests and show up, but like getting guests is a thing.
Yeah, it's
right?
tough. Yeah,
I mean, it's as much as you might want to do a
schedule.
podcast. Well, yeah, for you and me to correlate, and then have a third person, and then Brennan, like the scheduling can be an aspect. But I think a big aha for anybody doing a podcast is it's like, as much as you might have to say or much knowledge you might have to have on a thing. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 podcasts. It's like, you're like, I don't know that people just want to listen to Keith talk every day about Keith's thoughts, right? So getting the guests is a big thing. Having topics is a big thing. But then you start putting all these things together, right? So showing up and the scheduling is a big thing. Having guests is a thing. But then the editing and the production is the thing. Putting all the equipment together is the thing.
Yeah.
And then all of that means nothing if you don't like disperse it somewhere.
Correct.
Right.
So now all of a sudden, like, putting it out there is a thing.
Right.
You know? And so I think just juggling the promotion of the final end product, the lining up of the guests, and the actual activity of doing the show, for me anyways, was enough for me to be like, okay, that's what I can do. That's all I can do. And so the editing and the production is thank you is what I'm trying to say, Brennan.
I mean, thank you for being clients.
My friend here is trying to say.
What I'm trying to say
Love
is
is
I don't
blind.
know what I'd do without you. Yeah.
No, I love, your podcast has been awesome. Just like having all these business leaders and entrepreneurs come in here and meet them. And like, it's such a unique perspective from two other business owners, specifically like in the real estate area. Like I've met with a lot of real estate people over the years, because like there's a lot of real estate style podcasts, and not saying yours is a real estate style podcast. I think it just, but no one's ever taken me up on starting one. And when you came in and were like, we're interested in starting a podcast, I knew it was going to be a different angle, but I was just like, Spokane needs something like this.
So yeah, so out of all your podcasts that you do and your clients, do you think there's similarities or like an evolution of the podcast, regardless of like industry or topic that people go through, like from the time that they start to where they get into a rhythm, or to like where they quit, or to where they hit the ground running?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's been a little bit nimble in terms of how they've started until where it is now. The thing is, I've had a lot of podcasts that have quit too. Like they start and then they just stop. And
what do you think the ratio of that is? I'm just curious.
Oh man, out of 10 podcasts that I have, about 2 stick around.
Okay.
And it's like starting a business.
Yeah.
80% fail.
Yeah, no, it truly is. Like
Is it because they didn't intend to do it though? Yeah. Is it because they didn't intend to have it go longer? like they were just using it because I think it's a great way to develop content clips where you can kind of get it down, have the video, have that piece. But is it just that, or do you just kind of
it's consistency? Like it's a lot of the people I've worked with, and it is business owners, and really the focus on their podcast is usually business to business. It's content to create for their marketing channels, and they see a need for 6 months, and then they're like, I don't know if this is really going the way I wanted it to go, or this is not providing me the amount of exposure that I was expecting, or I'm not getting the listenership that I expected. And so I think there's frustrations there for a lot of podcasters. But the one thing I always tell anyone that starts a podcast with me is this is going to take a year to get consistent, and a lot of people want to start at a monthly podcast, and I don't really recommend that just because it's not enough. And so I really recommend starting at a bi-weekly and then hopefully maybe getting to a weekly, just because the more consistent you can be with your content and how much it comes out and what days it comes out, that will provide like, oh, I know that every Tuesday Chess Not Checkers is going to come out. But if it's only coming out once a month, you're only on someone's mind once a month. But if you're weekly, then it's like every week on Tuesday, I'm going to check that podcast. I listen to a lot of daily podcasts because I'm like, I want to know the latest video game news. And so I'm like, I'll see that headline and see if it's something I want to listen to. And so it's just consistency. And I see a lot of, people just get frustrated with it because it is like they want to be the next. I mean, I've countless amount of times I hear people, I want to be the next Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan got his idea from being on a podcast. Like he got it from being on a podcast with Tom Green. Tom Green was he was one of the early streamers. He was streaming live interviews from his house in Hollywood, and Joe Rogan was on there, and he was like, so you can like drink on here and you can like smoke on here, and we
haven't issued that yet in Keith's building, but yeah.
and Tom,
well, you can drink in here. I don't know if you can smoke in here. You might set the fire alarm on. I don't know.
and then he's like, also like, and you also have complete control over who's going to advertise on your podcast, and that's where he saw like. That's where I think he saw the dollar signs. He's like, I have a platform and I have a lot of followers and fans, and that's where he got the ideas from being on Tom Green's podcast. But how he got famous was this pure hustle and being a comedian. Like he got the guests. He got the comedian guest. He got that.
Well, and he's a conversationalist. Right? I don't think anybody who's ever listened to Joe Rogan who's not biased to Joe before you start. Like a lot of
One
people
way or the
just
other.
hate Joe, but. He's a good conversationalist. That guy can hold a conversation with a variety of people in a variety of industries or capacities. He seems to always have something somewhat interesting to say or can keep pace with the conversation. I think that's a gift for sure. Yeah. I don't think the people who say they want to be the next Joe Rogan, I don't know that they know what that is. Right? I don't know if you understand who, because he, at any rate, but everyone wants to be the next Joe Rogan apparently, podcast wise. Because I think Jordan said a good statement of like, did they not intend for it to go forever? Like, do people typically say, I want to do it for a year, or I want to do it for, this is a podcast, I want to get this topic out? Or is it just more organic, like I'm just going to see where this goes? I
think it's more organic, and I want to see where this goes. I don't hold anyone to like a year contract or 6 month contract or anything like that. I realize that this is a very like fickle industry, and if I want people to come in and see how easy it is, how easy I make it. I'll have the camera ready. I'll have the mics ready. I'll have, your art up on the screen. I want people to come in my studio and be like, that was a really easy way to record a podcast. Yeah. I don't have to play with a board and like make sure everything's recording. Like the biggest thing I ever hear from people that have started their own podcasts is, I forgot to press the record button. And like
that sounds stupid, but I have totally done it. I did it. I did it once. I did an 1.5 hour long podcast. At the end of it, it was like
probably the best one you've done to date too.
Yeah, right. It was the best. No, I felt bad for my buddy who agreed to be on it, who we actually had read more.
Was on it?
Me and the podcast. And then at the end of it, I was like, thanks for your 1.5 hours of time. And
I took a lot away from that. Yeah.
This is you and me, two guys that already talk.
That's funny.
I should ask you, like, what? I mean, I'm sure we talked about this when we first started, but like, why did you want to start a podcast?
A million reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, I think that the podcast platform was more of just a calling. I know it sounds weird, but I feel like I like to talk about a bunch of random stuff, but it's like, I think during COVID or during like political races, like I'm never a person who doesn't want to talk about things. Really. But I don't like to talk about them where you like with people that you kind of know where the conversation's going to go. Like Uncle John over here. Okay. The world's going to hell in a handbasket. Like I'm not real interested in convincing Uncle John of something he doesn't know or having. Right. But as far as like organic conversation, me and the wife get invited to a friend's lake place for the weekend, and there's 2 or 3 other couples there. Like, I enjoy kind of sitting out on the back porch or being at dinner and saying, "Hey, you guys, what do you guys think of this thing going on?" And really kind of hearing everybody's opinion or what they think. Like, I've always kind of enjoyed that, and I call that like from my history, it's philosophy to me. Like, I love hearing people's kind of life philosophies, their political philosophies. And I'm able to, I feel like, have those conversations and be passionate about my views, but also like hold space for other people. And so I guess for me, the podcast was like, man, I feel like it'd be a good place to have those kind of conversations and to be able to ask hard questions or dive into things in kind of a place that would provide value to other people. That you could show other people that you could do that same thing. Yeah. Like, hey, we can sit here and talk about homelessness or a political issue or something triggering, but kind of analyze it from different angles and get people's different perspectives. And at the end of the day, not have everybody agree or not have all the listeners agree, but have people go, "Well, I never thought about it that way." Or, now I kind of think of it a little differently. So for me, that was really the calling. Was like, I don't know that it was to get 1 million followers or be the next Joe Rogan. Right. It was like to selfishly fulfill Keith's cup of like not having that in my life, because the world's become so polarizing and politics and all the things that it's kind of like, I think post-COVID, people shied away from it, right?
Yeah.
Like people just got to the point where it was like, you just don't ask, right? Like if you were in a social setting and it felt safe, you'd be like, "Hey, how about this knucklehead running for office or something?" But for the most part, it was just kind of like life became very vanilla conversations.
Yes.
Right?
I agree with that, yeah.
We'll all say what we feel comfortable saying that won't rock the boat or trigger anybody into a spasm. But that's just boring, right? Yeah. And to me, that's like
not entertaining.
Well, it's not like boring, but it's not life. I feel like you're, what do you call it? Like numbing or watering down the experience of life when you can't like neighbor to neighbor or communally have a conversation and passionately disagree.
Yeah, there's no there's discourse, but it's all behind the keyboard now. Correct. And that's scary because like I feel like when in the 90s, like when I was like being raised in Spokane, like there'd be people would have conversations and someone might be left, someone might be right, but they were neighbors. Yeah. And Spokane's still like that. You just have to go outside and actually have that conversation with someone. I just feel like it's become so toxic now on the internet that like people just are afraid to even to do that now. And that's why I appreciate your podcast, because you do have a lot of different opinions, like and I love how much you're open to just have that conversation. Like Jonathan Bingle is very controversial in Spokane, but when you talk to him, he's just a guy that lives in Spokane who cares about his community and wants to do good things in our city. And like, but if you go on Facebook, there's people that either praise him or people that either hate him. Like, and you've experienced that too, Jordan.
So I didn't anticipate this stuff when we started, but I think mine was I just felt like I had a unique position with what we were doing, and me and Keith would meet over beer and just kind of talk, and I'm like, this, like, what I feel like I do is connect dots, and there's just a lot of people that have that same concern, or we would be talking about a topic. I'm like, well, these 3 guys were concerned about that too. And so I think that was the initial thought of like, hey, wouldn't it be fun? Because what gives me kind of joy is hearing people's story and then kind of learning from it. And I just kind of started going through some of that stuff I was going through. And then the second one was kind of for my daughter. I'm like, how cool would it be to have this like recorded piece that she could always have or look back on? Because one thing I haven't done well kind of going through it is just like journal or like I'll be one of those that I'm just an optimistic person. So once I get this solved and we get out of it, I'll try not to remember most of this. Yeah. And I think it was just one of those like forced mechanisms that says, no, you're going to sit in this. You're going to have conversations. And then I've gotten 10x out of it. Like I'll be sitting here, and I remember first time it hit was just it could have been the first guest. We were talking to Tyler, and I'm like, just hearing that, wait, you're not, everyone struggles with this.
Right.
And it's still showing up, and I messed all this, but hey, still show up and be there. And I remember just walking away from that first one we did, and I'm like, I don't care if no one ever sponsors this. I don't even care if anyone ever listens to it. I said, so now I pretty much have a target of one. Make sure I don't say something that gets Whitney upset at me. Someone throw her under the bus or something. But she listens to all of them too, and it's been kind of a fun piece that way. And so I think that's always been my goal. Like whether we have 10 listeners, 10,000, it's just like I take so much away from them like I've never had before, because I think what a podcast forces you to do is listen.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So I could do the same conversation, and we could be sitting at Brick West, and I'll get it half of what I hear today.
It's very intentional in here. Like,
and to be good at this, Keith does a really good job. I'm actually really glad I didn't just start my own, because sometimes I'll be sitting there and then you'll ask a question. I'm like, damn, that's a good question. And so then it forces me to sit back and be like, all right, what is Luke saying? What is Brennon saying? Like, and so it's really taught me to just stop talking.
Yeah.
And like listen, and you hear people's stories, and you're able to like actually be present with them. My life outside of this little room isn't always present.
Yeah. Do you find that like you become more present though when you talk to people? Because like before I started podcasting, I've always been interested in what other people are doing. I love talking to people and just kind of getting their story. But as I've done a lot of podcasts, and then just in my day to day, I find myself just listening more and just like really engaging with people, just because like I've kind of just taught myself to always ask questions and be curious. And podcasting has totally given me like the opportunity to talk to a lot of people I wouldn't have, but then also gives me the opportunity to like have a conversation with my mom and like ask more questions about, where did our family come from? Like, stuff like that, like family stuff. And it really has deepen my conversational
how much
skills.
You can learn when you're not talking, right? Like is the aha.
That's the aha.
Well, and you're supposed to engage the guests typically, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the point of having them on. So one of the ahas that I had early on too was like I needed to ask better questions, or just kind of read them, because when you invite somebody on a podcast, and you've done a few of them. After a while, like, I forget the camera's there.
Yeah.
I literally forget the camera's there. I forget where the clock is, and they're like, oh, shoot, it's been an hour and a half, or it's been an hour and 20. And so, but I forget, because I enjoy the experience. But that is what it's taught me, is, like, to get other people to open up. Like, okay, they're almost there, but I need to, like, pry a little deeper, or they're kind of still surface, or I can tell they're nervous, And so it's like, how can you kind of quickly break down those walls or ask good questions to where it gets them talking about whatever their passion is or their topic is. It's definitely been an eye-opening thing. And then again, reflecting on how many times in my life do I just like steamroll over people while I talk and never get to the heart of what they want to talk
about. It's funny, like listening to like some of the first ones, even now to the ones we do now, and you'll see that difference. Like, I think me and you were talking over either ourselves or the guest at times, and then now you're kind of just watching. It has a nice flow. But I would argue to say we also have had really good guests.
Yeah.
Like nobody's really felt like it. I mean, there's been a few where it's like pull it out to get there, but like they're all kind of been pretty fun. And so it's great to just sit and listen to them sometimes and then hear it. And I think it gets me inspired, because then I can go around to even more people and be like, all right, hey, come try this out.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be on a podcast. Most people want to be on a podcast. I've had a couple of guests where I'm like, yeah, you want to come on the show? And they're like, I don't think I want to do that. Like, they're a little too nervous. But I feel like when you invite someone onto a podcast to kind of tell their story, it's an easy way to get to know someone quicker, because like now you're kind of forcing them to like into the space that they're a little bit uncomfortable, but like if you're being intentional, like it's genuine, it's really easy to kind of get to someone, I feel like.
And it's relaxed, right? Because like the difference if we sat down, this was like a filmed, like where you're staring into the camera. I don't think we elicit the same responses. I don't think you get same conversation, but I think this atmosphere just sets it up where you wander in, you grab a bottle of water, sit down, have a casual conversation.
I mean, I honestly, like, I never intended to go to video. Like, video, I mean, when I started podcasting, like, there was no video really. And even 5 years ago, like, I kind of like was pushing it because I didn't want to deal with it, for one, because I'm not a video editor, but also like there is something special about just like not having all the lights and having to just kind of be more of a. When we started Spokast, we started in my friend's condo. He lives in like Railroad Alley in that building, and we recorded at his like bar, and it was just there was no cameras, there was just mics, and we're just having conversations, and that's where it started. And I sometimes wish I would turn off the camera for some podcasts, but gotta get the content.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know, when did that come about? When did the video with podcasts come about? Like,
oh, well, Joe Rogan like really started filming his shows. I feel like he was one of the early ones.
Because I would bet money, right, are like half or more than half our listeners right now are listening in their car, or on their phone,
a small percentage are on YouTube,
Spotify, or the smaller percentage I think watch that, but they do get a lot of views.
Yeah,
right. Like the people that do watch but I feel like some of the podcasts are more catered to that. Like I kind of prefer to watch Joe Rogan on YouTube,
yeah,
or like Theo
entertaining
Vaughn.
to watch.
Like,
They're
and you'll
entertaining to
see their
watch.
short clips on socials.
Yeah,
but then there's other podcasts that I've listened to for years, and I'm like, I don't even know what the host looks like.
right?
You know what I mean?
True.
I'm like, I've listened to this podcast for 3 years, and I don't even know. I don't think I've ever sought it out.
Yeah, well, Apple and Spotify both released like the ability to like upload video to their platforms.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, and so like we could release the video on Spotify as well. I don't do that just because I'm when I'm on Spotify and I'm like listening to a podcast and a video pops up, I'm like, I don't want this. I just want to listen to this in my car. But the video came about probably about 5 years ago. When I was making clips for people early on, it was like taking their logo and like getting like some type of visualizer to the audio so it would look interesting, and then quickly it became like we need to have talking heads. Like we need to. This is a lot more engaging to look at someone talking than like listening to like an audiogram on Instagram, and that's I think the content piece of it where podcasts became even less about the episodes themselves and more about making clips from them. And because there's a lot of podcasts that I know about that I've never even listened to a full episode. A lot of comedy podcasts like that are
like
on
Theo
TikTok.
Vaughn, I bring him up because he's in my feed a lot and I see him. I think he's funny as heck. I actually saw him when he came to town, but I don't think I've ever listened to a full episode.
No, I haven't either.
I've seen millions of clips, and then some of the ones that were clips that drug me into an episode. 23 minutes on that's not even that good. That's right? Well, because they're comedians, and so they get a funny moment, a bit, and so I think I worry that our podcast or whatever sometimes it's like too cerebral. Like I don't know, like we're always talking about. Or it's like you kind of got to be in the mood. Like my wife sometimes, like she'll tell me straight to my face. Like we've been together for 20 years, but my wife's like I don't want to go there right now, right? Like I'll go deep real quick, right? I'll be like, the school needs to. And she's like, listen, we're not going there, all right? Like it was just it was an issue at recess. Let it go. And I'm like, I want to have a meeting with the school board or something. And that's just a random example, but I'm like, I like that. I like going deep. I like talking about the inner meaning of things or all that. But I think it can be a lot for people when they're just trying to zone out and mow their lawn. And they're like, I don't know if I want to hear Keith ramble about like his philosophical views on being.
That is true.
I think what is interesting is sometimes people just want to listen to like learn something about someone that they don't know much about. And I think that's what makes yours interesting is that like you get a lot of people on here that might have never really done a podcast or have had like Jonathan Beagle, for example. Like he never really does long form interviews, and it's interesting to hear kind of get his perspective, and I appreciate that because I think there's a lot of people who want to hear a full story from someone or learn something about someone that they didn't even know existed in Spokane or in our region. I think that is, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to listen to all of them live, so I don't really have to, and then edit them, so I don't really go back and listen to them. But it's definitely needed in Spokane to have more conversations between. This to introduce people. Like I didn't know, like the episode before this, Luke Jasmine, I didn't know he was a person in Spokane, and he's working with the governor of Washington State. Like it's like people need to know those stories.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a big amount of issues and topics that I'm interested in that I kind of feel like sometimes I have my thumb on. Like I'm like, when it comes to this is kind of where I stand and this is why I stand there. And then through these interviews with some people, I'll be like, man, I never thought of it that way, or I never knew that little piece. And it kind of starts to make you question. And I feel like for some people, that's a really good feeling. For some people, it's a really like scary
feeling,
or like, I don't like that feeling. Right. And so I think our podcast probably is not going to bode well for those people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think kind of the feedback I've gotten is just eventually we'll probably have to figure out like what the topic is. Like what direction. Because I like the idea that it's just like, so next week I'm working on getting somebody on that invented a product. I'm like, dude, how cool. So the hard part, I think, when you're trying to pick what podcast to listen to, like when I was doing Bigger Pockets, you knew what you were getting every time you tuned in there. And I think Joe Rogan's I like, though, because you don't always know. His is just who's coming on. And so I think as you get some consistency around it,
I think the angle there, and I'm just whatever, I'm guessing.
Nice. Nice.
The angle there, though, is when it's topic driven, like we have those real estate podcasts like Bigger Pockets. Yep. When I am in the mood to mow my lawn and I want to learn something about real estate investing, I go to Bigger Pockets, and it's my stable go-to. But also, there's a lot of times that's the same reason I don't listen to it. It's just this one-dimensional thing, and I'm like, not gonna like probably get a huge laugh. I'm not gonna have my mind, But whereas like with Rogan, it's like for me, and just using him as an example, is like I don't listen to him religiously or even a lot. But if I do decide I'm on a road trip and I want to listen to some Rogan, I'm selective about the interview.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll actually scroll through the podcast and say, okay, what topic or person or thing is of interest to me? So I think that's the dichotomy there is you have a topic-driven podcast where you're going to get probably more following and viewers because they're like, hey, this is a baking podcast. I'm into baking. I'm going to subscribe to this because I want to talk about and listen about baking. But you're not thinking of diversity either.
No.
Yeah.
So
I will say like that has been the biggest shift in podcasting over the last like 4 or 5 years. In the last 3 years is having more hyper-focused content that's going over a certain either topic or theme that is very specific to the podcast. Like the general interview podcasts, like those are still very popular, but I found that like there's a lot more people going towards something that's a lot more focused on like a singular topic. Like I do a podcast with Blue Stiley called Navigating No, and his podcast is about featuring people who've navigated the hard parts of life and how did they get through one of the toughest moments of their life. And that's where the conversation kind of starts and goes from. And then I do a Gonzaga basketball podcast with Adam Morrison, and that's very hyper focused because it's just about Gonzaga basketball. So like having people do want to have both, and I think there's definitely a benefit. Like Spokast was the original idea of it was trying to be a hyper focus towards the community because there was not a podcast in Spokane that existed yet that featured, or at least that we were aware of, that featured people doing cool shit in Spokane. And that's where we saw like
is there now?
Spokast still kind of exists. The podcast I've released,
No, I'm saying outside Spokast. Is there really another podcast that that's about Spokane or people doing cool stuff in Spokane?
I mean, I don't know. You just not check her. You've been pretty focused on the people in Spokane, and I'm probably forgetting some of my podcasts. There have been like I saw my friend T.S. The Solution. He's a local hip hop artist. He was on a podcast that was at the Dream Center. I don't know where the Dream Center is at, but there's someone else that's doing a podcast about people in Spokane. There's a couple of them. Yeah. There's a handful of them. There's people that Spokane's one of those is a city that people are very passionate about, and they really want to celebrate the people that live here, and that's what I love Spokane, and I've always wanted to I get a podcast I do with Joshua Hassong. If not now, when that was focused on primarily at the beginnings of talking about how to make downtown better.
Yeah. Is that one still going?
It's still going. We've kind of changed the direction because we wanted just to get away from the topic of downtown, and trying to fix it and have conversations about it. Like we weren't trying to fix it, we were just trying to have conversations. And
But hoping those conversations would likely lead to some sort of fixing or progression.
Conversation.
And I talked to Josh actually in the hallway here a couple weeks ago, and it was interesting because he said the same thing. And he said the hard part wasn't the podcast was great. People would come on. People wanted to talk about it. And I don't mean to speak for Josh, but he was kind of alluding to the fact of like, but they just wanted to bitch about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was like, hey, come on my podcast. We're going to talk about how we can make this downtown Spokane better. And then it's just a half hour of someone being like, this is why it's terrible.
We don't like downtown.
This is why it sucks, and this is the problems with it. But it wasn't very solution oriented, or there was not a lot of positive spin to it. And so, but good on Josh for recognizing that, and for you guys to say that, hey, let's go a different angle with this, or let go a little bit more solution based, because I felt that way with Jack. Was like, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I just like the format of it, right? The open platform to talk about it. I mean, I think I was trying to picture going through that scenario where it's kind of been fun. It was almost therapeutic to have a talk with you guys about that article, right? Even if nobody was listening, it was just like you're getting your thoughts out there because you're like, I haven't had a voice anywhere. Yeah. And you're just kind of stuck behind it. So it was almost an interesting, that very specific example, but it just gives kind of each guest and then us kind of that a little bit of a platform to kind of just voice some of it and have that info. It's just, there's just so many moving pieces to Spokane and what we're doing. And obviously our hope is to bring on even more guests that probably aren't Spokane related as well. But but I think it's been a pretty great platform that way of going down rabbit trails.
To when Brennon asked me why I did this was like, I think it was like that feeling of not being able to have those conversations that I wanted to have, but also, like that can become like a lonely feeling, right? Like when you're like something's on your heart or your mind, and you're like, man, I just really want to talk about this with somebody. But then when you go to social situations, it may or may not be appropriate, right? Or it may not like get any sort of positive response or anything. But then also, there's also a weird thing for me, like to call Jordan and be like, hey, Jordan, you want to have a beer? But then the premise of me wanting to have beer with you is because I want to talk about this thing. So then we meet to have a beer, and you're like, well, this is a really fun key to like you sit here and talk about your, So, but this is a space that you can create where you're like, hey, man, I can go and get whatever's on my head, my heart, my mind out in a platform that's accepting of it. Because people can tune in or tune out if they want to, right? Because if they're like, I don't want to hear that, then they don't. But it gives you that space. It's like your safe room. It's Keith's safe room.
So true. It's a little bit like that, right? And you get to voice it. And I think that I like the fact we don't agree on all things, right? So we can come at it from different angles. And so it's been super cool. And so I could see the benefit of podcasting for people almost as, it's not even just therapeutic, but this in a way where you kind of can have that voice be heard. To your point, I think too many people just don't have it.
Right.
So then when you get the chance on a post or on an article or something, like there's your chance.
Yeah.
And it's probably not even the best environment to do it. But it's been fun. It's also exposing me to a little more about Spokane. It just makes me so optimistic knowing that these people exist here.
Yeah. I would say that.
Like I knew they were there. I knew you did all this stuff, but then I'll dive in and I'll learn something brand new about the person. And it's really given kind of a really good forum for that too. As well as people I've known, like I said, like the ones you invited, but like I've known if I see them, we'll meet up. But there's something about the intentionality and then the 1 hour time block of all right, let's learn, and then really taking it from the stance of what could people take away from this. And so, well, yeah. Again, I think all 10 people, so it's not like all of them yet, but we're starting to get there. It'll go and grow.
We got more than 10 people listening.
What do you see for the future of Spokast?
Yeah, I see myself. I want to help people get.
I feel like one of these has got to hit for Brennon, right? Like Brennon's gonna keep producing shows until one of them hits, and he's like, "Well, I made the Joe Rogan show."
Exactly.
Month, right?
Yeah, that's the dream. No, I really what's next is this. I have the ability to have a handful of more clients. I would love to help people just do more pieces of what they're doing in their podcast. That I find myself when I do get busier, though, it's hard for me to do all the clip making and do like social media management. But a long time ago, I had a vision that maybe like Spokast was more than just like a podcast. It was about lifting up the people and voices of Spokane. I said, I have a more marketing background. Like I would love to have someone that would help me manage social media for other clients and like help other businesses locally manage their social media. But I'm not there yet. And really right now, my focus is on making this profitable and making it a viable like business. Like it's still there, but it is, I probably spend most of my time trying to figure out how to grow it still. Like I'm still very much, even though it's been 4 years, I'm still very much in the startup phase. Early on, I was a part of the Spokane Workers Co-op, and there was visions of this like growing within inside of that, and then that didn't really take, and I ended up stepping away and getting like what happened was I sold my business to them and then bought my business back from them. It was very amicable and very easy to do, but like there was a community side of this too. Like I really love Spokane and like lifting up the voices inside of it and helping anyone create a podcast that needs help with it. And I'm always willing to like work with people to like help them if they can't afford it or they need a little help, or or maybe I'm just doing like the audio side of them and they're doing the video and then they're kind of editing themselves. Like I want to help people make podcasts that for anyone. It doesn't just have to be, I don't need to have to do every piece of it too. So it's just more podcasts. I want to.
What do you guys think that the replacement for podcasts is going to be? Where do you think it gets replaced? Because it kind of replaced radio, right? Or it's kind of merged in this radio and TV thing now, right?
Yeah.
But that was all network stuff before. You couldn't just broadcast, right?
No.
Or could you? Maybe
there's public broadcasting.
Public broadcasting.
Yeah.
There's still public broadcasting, kind of. But I think it's always, that's an interesting question because like YouTube already existed before podcasting. Like podcasting and YouTube kind of coincide a little bit, like 2004, 2005. I think I'm trying to think of when Apple just made their podcast platform.
Well, YouTube wasn't even a thing till like 2004.
Right? Yeah. But like, video content has just become king. Like, and podcasts are going more towards that video aspect, and that's probably where it's going next. But AI is also a thing. Obviously AI is a big piece of what I do. Like in that, like it helps me do pieces of my business that like I wouldn't be able to do 4 years ago. That's probably the biggest shift in my production is like I can now do so much more via AI that I couldn't do 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago, if you wanted me to write a podcast description for you, it was going to take me 30 minutes to write one.
Yeah.
And I'd write it and then I'd probably just copy and paste it every time and kind of switch words out. And now I can feed it a transcript of what the podcast
actual show.
Yeah. And like say write me a description for the podcast
in this episode. Yeah.
And I will edit it a little bit. Sometimes it calls your show Chestnut Checkers.
Chestnut by an open fire. Chestnut Checkers.
But yeah, like in clip making, like I use a program called Opus that helps me make clips. I kind of go in and everything I do I manipulate it because AI is great, but it only takes it so far. It's not perfect.
Here's something that blew my mind recently, and I hadn't thought about it, and I'm trying to remember who was talking about it that made me think about it. But like, we're sitting here talking about doing a podcast and encouraging people, or hey, if you got something on your heart, mind, do a podcast, it'd be great. But there's a lot of people that don't because maybe like that, like the idea of them doing it is like the hurdle. Meaning maybe they don't like the way they sound or the way they look, or they don't think they're whatever funny enough or until. But with AI, like, have you guys started seeing these AI characters and like they got like Bigfoot or they got whatever, just some funny examples. But I was listening to a podcast about like creators now, or people are creating like AI, whatever, whether they're animals or animation or whatever, giving them their personality or a personality, similar like the way Disney does or similar way like Sesame Street does. But now they're like, they own that content and that like, and they can license that thing. So similar like how Disney licensed Barbie. Like I can't go make a Barbie movie tomorrow unless I pay Disney, right? Or get Disney's permission. This whole new world now is opened up where like Sally in her basement tomorrow could create an AI character, albeit a person or a thing, have it start telling jokes or have it start a podcast, and she's now able to like monetize this, and yet it's not them. It's like their creative.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen stand-up comedians do not, and it's not like they're fake stand-up comedians, but it's like
because the person doesn't have to get on stage.
It's an AI person, and it's also like it's just someone feeding an AI lines, and then it's now the video is involved, and it looks like they're on a stage. That there's a laugh track that's AI generated. It's bizarre. Like there's a lot of, but yeah, I mean, I have software that I could feed it I could write a script via like ChatGPT of something like some topic that I have. I could then feed it into another app I use called Descript, and then have it generate a AI bot that's talking, and I could even make it me. Like I could make AI. I can make podcasts just me if I wanted to. Like there's so much you could do with AI, and maybe that is the direction it's going.
I just wonder. It was Vaynerchuk now. That's who was saying it. I was trying to remember that, but he was talking about that there's not too far a distant future where if you go down that rabbit hole far enough, right? Like where they take the comedian for example. If the people laughing are real, meaning like the jokes are landing, and they're getting something out of it. Like this is great. I love listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who created the AI bot or is writing the jokes is getting paid. The AI bot's serving a purpose in 3 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
But it also may not be too far in the future where like the most popular podcast ever is literally like I listen to the Jordan Peterson show because I just think Jordan Peterson's like a genius. So I can hear his take on things. Because to me, I'm like, Jordan Peterson's one of those guys you could put on camera and just throw topics, and you could just say like human trafficking. You could say, state of the Middle East. You could say, and he's just going to have something profound to say about it, right? But what happens when that's AI? Like, what happens when AI hosts its own show and it's just like, I'm going to give you my opinions, my creative on whatever it is, but people like it.
Yeah.
People start eating it up. Like,
I think there's a direction that AI is going to that direction. I also think AI is going into a direction of where people are going away from it and they want real content, and they want or they want smaller influencers or smaller personalities, because I don't want to follow Joe Rogan. I want to find someone that's more a smaller, approachable person. And there's definitely different ways that I see things going, because it's AI is also going to become an amazing search engine for anyone. So like if you're looking for a podcast to find that's about like conversation, like you could put all these different prompts in there, like trying to find the podcast you want. Like I imagine there's going to be like a way for people to be able to find podcasts that fit their lane that they didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And so the more organic content you can create too is also huge, because you're feeding an algorithm and you're also creating real content, and that's going to mean a lot more down the road, even 5-10 years down the road. Like this is going to can live forever unless I delete it. But it's
can you ever delete anything?
No, it's good point.
I don't know. At this point, we might be too far gone.
That's true.
There is no deleting. It's on a server somewhere.
But I do think that there's a little bit of both. Like there's going to be people who are drawn to more the AI stuff, and there's going to be people that I really want real content. So I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily real. You're gonna want something original. You're gonna want like that person. Like I think that, because I've watched a couple movies now where they basically take CGI to that next level, and you're like, why would you pay an actor $20 million?
Right.
The movie's pretty good. Like, that's true. They recreate it and just license the voice.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to now, but eventually you won't even have to license the voice because nobody will actually care who the actor or actress was. So like it'd be interesting to see how far it goes with it, because like the topics we talk about, it could synthesize.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty easy.
Well, probably actually know better topics to talk about and guests to have.
But to Brennon's point, maybe what it does is localize, right?
Yeah.
So then you definitely want just a Spokane podcast because they know who you are in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gonna be weird when some like super fan comes up to you, Jordan, and starts to like feel your face, like just to make sure you're real?
Are you real? Yeah, super fan.
His skin feels funny.
I think
because I use it a ton, man. I use it all the time but it's a lot of formatting. It's a lot of efficiency tools that help me just take what would have taken 30 minutes. Now I'm reviewing a draft of it in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and that's where I see it for sure. But
I'm not afraid of AI as much as I'm afraid of humans using AI and what the humans want to use the AI for.
Yeah,
right?
that's monetizing
Like I don't know that AI is sinister and dark. I think people are, and then they'll use AI for sinister and dark things. But
it has everything like that. I mean, it takes away all the flaws of a human. Now you're just like, ChatG is the easiest one for me. I don't have to go grab a drink with it. I don't have to go like, hey, did I hurt your feelings? Hey, I can just be like,
let me ask you this question: are you polite to it?
Oh, yeah. That's not good though. I'm like, thank you. That's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. That's an awesome idea.
But like, I think you take that concept forward, and I think that's where it gets super, super interesting. And it'll be. Did you ever watch Ready Player One?
I don't think I did.
If you should, for one, but it's almost. Do you hit a point where it's just like we can't take anymore? That we want the human piece becomes the most valuable piece.
Yeah.
Somebody went down that rabbit hole one day, and it was like, if you're seeking after like gourmet food, and all you want is like the best food of whatever kind, right? At some point in time, the flaw becomes like the creme de la creme. It's like all of a sudden, like when every grilled cheese sandwich you eat is perfect. Yep. And then someone burns one, and then you're like, "Ooh, this char kind of tastes good." And all of a sudden, it's like the burnt cheese is the perfect sandwich because they're like, "What a genius! He burnt it."
So true.
Because in the aim for perfection, the imperfection becomes what's sought after, right?
Oh yeah, and I think that's kind of where you'll hit a point.
Well, I think we're in luck with our podcast.
Yeah, we are in luck. I don't think we're worried about those natural trends. But I think it's as you're going and growing, you always got to be thinking of what that next step is. Because I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, actually, that one. He's saying if you don't think there's already a robot roofer out there, you're wrong. I've seen one lay the roof down, and it's like every job kind of faces that piece. And I think what humans are really good at, though, is adapting to what that next version looks like.
Well, I mean, I think even if like I get replaced by an AI that can help produce people's podcasts better, there's still someone that has to pull some of those levers. I mean, I think there's definitely like our kids growing up right now, there's going to be a degree for them to run AI for like a business. Like,
yeah, human beings becoming obsolete, I don't think is a reality as far as it's more of a fear-based thought, right? Okay, it's going to ruin the world and we're all doomed. I mean, it's just a very extremist way to look at it. But I think the question mark on the unknown is actually what's creating most of the anxiety for people, or most of the worry is kind of, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like our immediate or more immediate ancestors, like progression of innovation in life was like slow enough that like even when new things happen, like it would take long enough to get out that like there was just a pace to things that were like you didn't have much anxiety about it because you're like, yeah, we all ride horses and they built this automobile thing and maybe someday the horses are gone, but that's going to take 50 years, right? But like somebody tomorrow can really create an innovation and it changes everything in like 2 weeks. You're like, I no longer need a CPA. Right? Or like, I no longer have to have cash money, right? Like they can make one decision and say, we're going to digitize currency. Yeah. And now 1,000 things are going to change in 30 seconds. Yeah. And for, I think, a human being, that question mark as, I don't know that my kids have the anxiety, right? Like, cause they're not wary or wherewithal. They're just kind of like, well, whatever, dad. But as an adult, those are the things I worry about for my kids or even my own future. Is just like, man, it is a little bit unnerving to be living in a time where like you don't know what 3 years from now looks like. Yeah. Like you don't know if you even have a job doing what you're doing in 2 years, or you don't know. Yeah. And while that might seem, people could say, "Oh, Keith, whatever," I'm like, that's a lot more real than you think.
No, it is.
I don't care what industry you're in or what you do. Like that's a lot more real than you think. Whether you're a neurosurgeon to an attorney to a roofer, right? Like there's a lot of this stuff's going to change really quick, and I think that's kind of the messaging now. So the question is then how do you go day to day, month to month, week to week, year to year with that kind of hanging over your head?
Well, you take it in bits and pieces, right? It's just you don't ignore it. I think that's the key. I think the amount of change that's happened in the last 10, 20 years versus like you're speaking to the last 500.
Yeah.
It's such a massive change. And I think that it's humans trying to keep up with it. And that's one of the hard parts, like going from my grandparents trying to figure out a Bitcoin. Are you joking?
Yeah.
Like, there's one of these cool skits of like, yeah, you got these kids over here creating AI algorithms, and your grandparents still wondering how to do a right click. Right? And so it's like
you just right click on it, Grandpa.
And I think it's probably an ongoing conversation of like how you figure that out. But I also do believe like humans are just relational.
Yeah.
And I don't know a stat on this. I'd have to look it up, but I'd have to argue we're probably the loneliest we've ever been with the most convenience we've ever had.
That's true.
And so I could see some pendulum swinging back to that in person, that kind of.
Yeah, people are. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people that are shifting from. They're getting off social media. They're getting back just to the basics in some way. There's always. I do agree though that people do want, like the AI stuff that is AI generated, like on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok is. It is scary because there's a lot of news that comes out that's like fake and like, and people are pushing. They want to be more like in the community. So I mean, but that's kind of why I feel like I will always exist. Is there will always be people who want to.
But that goes back to that grilled cheese sandwich thought, right? It's kind of like it's not hard to believe in this not so distant future. Like people are going to be like, no, I want to live in a house that doesn't have internet, right? Because I don't want people to have accessibility to me, or I want to have a phone that's not a smartphone,
right?
Or I want to have, and I can see that happening. I'm already seeing it, like you said, with some friends and certain people. Like there's certain people that are they're like, I don't want social media in my life. I don't want like my internet at my house on past 9 p.m. I don't want, So like, how funny is that? Like not funny, but even telling is it to think that people might want to go back away from some of these luxuries that are now currently and so often are like looked at as signs of status. Like, oh, you have a self-driving car. Oh, you have, and it's like, no, I want to drive my own damn car and I want it to be gas, right?
And I want it to be a manual.
Yeah, I want it to be a manual. And how true is that? And I always think, what are we going to do with all of these things? And like maybe they'll just come back around. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they come full circle. The issue is when you have a child raised only knowing that. Like, how does that person? Like, I've sat around a table with my grandparents and just talked for like 2 hours. My daughter doesn't necessarily do that. She calls her friend on her Gizmo watch and plays Roblox.
Yeah.
Well,
and I'm like, well, it's convenient, right? I don't have to drive you 35 minutes north to do this. And I was like, when was the last time you just got on your bike and went out all day? But
that's the community now. Like the community
that's
is like
my fear is that we're just building the AI version of where it's like that will be because it's more convenient. It's easier. And I'm like, but you're missing out on the intangibles of what sitting like this even does versus listening to us talk like this. Right. So I don't know, but I think you're going to hit a point where it's just, I mean, humans need people. And I think you even seeing post-COVID, I think COVID might have been a wake-up call that way too. Yeah. Not to everybody, obviously not to everybody, but I think a lot of people are like, wait, I want to go be around people.
I feel like it actually did both. I feel like it divided people enough to where like the people who didn't want or need people found a way not to want or need people. Right, yeah. And they probably to this day probably are like that was a turning point in their life where maybe they were like for the first time they felt happier or they felt like safer or they felt like, oh man, I don't have this pressure to socially interact all the time or to show up to these things that I never wanted to go to. And I don't know, like again, you just might see a divide in humans in central, like, here's the people that enjoy human interaction and here's a big sect of people that don't. I mean, if I don't have to get my groceries or go to school, or if you literally can do everything you want to do and get everything you want to get without having to interact with people, there is a way, or there will be a way very shortly to where that's possible. And then maybe some people will enjoy that. I mean, you go to Gary Vee, if you go down his rabbit hole, like he's very, he's like some of your kids will like get married to AI people, like have full on relationships. Yeah. Because if you got to think about somebody outside of the reproductive portion, right? If what you need is like someone to talk to, reassurance, sympathetic ear, someone to give it, like, I don't know, it's probably more attentive than any other human being. Who's going to want to not be here next Thursday because they're catching a Mariners game, right? So
he's gone again.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be alive. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Makes our podcast all that more necessary.
Definitely.
So good. No, I love it. So if somebody's out there kind of thinking about a podcast, what's the best way to kind of get to you or start formulating it, or what would be the
best way would be to you can go to spokast.com. There's some links there if you want to set up a meeting with me to talk about starting a podcast. You can reach out to me on Instagram. It's where I'm the most active at spokast.podcasts. But yeah, I'm pretty accessible at all those places. So, or you can email me at hello@spokast.com. But I find that people that get the easiest direct access to me are people who go on and schedule an appointment. And like, I think you might have done that. I think you just like might have popped on my calendar. I'm like, I have a meeting with Jordan Tampion in like a week, and I'm like, what is this about? And I like, and sometimes I follow up. I'm like, what is it like? What's going on? Like, what can I help you with? And then I just meet with you, and I'm like, oh, this is how I've got all my podcasts, just very, just organically or yeah. So I will say like, but I'm available, and I try to work with people however they like to make their podcast. I tell everyone that I can help you from the inception to publication and marketing. So whatever you need me to do, I can do a little bit of everything. So nice. I can design stuff for you. I can make a website for you if you needed one. I can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
What I would say is if you have an interest or if you had an interest in a podcast, get a hold of Brennon and try one out. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, definitely. It's this space has been amazing too. Like being in the 808 has changed my like podcasting trajectory considerably. Like to be able to come into a space that's like professional and also like have.
Yeah, you know.
It sounds really good. Like
just a little plug to the 808.
Well,
I think it's cool for the viewers that don't know. Like the studio we're sitting in right now is a building that I bought a few years ago, but it used to be the old iHeartMedia building.
Yeah.
And Brennon moved in here, I don't know, a few months ago. April-ish. To do Spokast out of. But the cool thing is it's like they are rooms that were broadcast rooms that used to broadcast radio stations, right out the iHeartMedia stations, all of them just in a row. And now they're being kind of, been somewhat repurposed for podcasting, but they were kind of built for it.
Yeah.
Right? They're like
totally
double rocked, insulated, all that kind of stuff. So it's cool for a lot. It's cool. Yeah. It's cool for you that it's working out so well. It's cool to kind of throw a little head nod back to the iHeart building, I think, and still use their rooms for the intended purpose.
Yeah, I moved from a radio station, an old community radio station, KORS, and I was like, oh, it was cool to be in a radio station, but then to actually be in that was like, I think, not purpose to be a radio station, but like to be in a space that, these are double paneled walls.
Yeah, you got a picture window.
Yeah,
we look official.
I always can see Brennon through the glass. He waves at me like we did.
So good.
Sometimes I don't. No, but I appreciate you both for hopping on board with Spokast, and I've really enjoyed making your podcast. And
you do a great job, man. Like I said, thank you. Thank you enough.
Again, I would have given up a while ago if we had to.
Totally.
Well, guaranteed. Sorry, Keith, I'm out. So
awesome. Well, thanks. And if you guys at all love these episodes, please like and subscribe, or share these with your friends.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind while you're there, give us a 5-star review. Maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.